At 11:47 p.m. on what would have been my mother's 55th birthday, I found the key. Not a physical key, but the answer to why she left my sister a $100,000 trust fund and gave me nothing but a battered wooden recipe box that smelled like cinnamon and disappointment. When I finally understood what that box really contained, I made a decision that would destroy everything my sister had built on lies. I left her a gift she'd never forget. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all started to unravel. The day my mother died, my sister Madison cried beautifully. I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. She had this way of crying that made her look ethereal, like a painting of grief. Tears would slide down her cheeks in perfect lines, never smudging her makeup, never making her nose red and blotchy like mine did. Even in death, even at our mother's funeral, Madison somehow managed to be the beautiful one, the composed one, the one everyone gravitated toward to offer comfort. I was the one who'd spent the last 8 months sleeping on a cot in Mom's hospital room. I was the one who'd learned to change IV bags, who'd held the basin when she threw up from chemo, who'd rubbed her feet when the neuropathy made them ache so badly she couldn't sleep. But at the funeral, it was Madison who everyone hugged, Madison who everyone told was so strong, Madison who Dad kept his arm around like she might shatter. I stood at the edge of things, holding a wadded tissue, my eyes swollen nearly shut from crying, and I thought about how this was pretty much how it had always been. Madison was 25, 3 years younger than me, and she'd been the golden child since the day she was born. I'd seen the photos Mom had documented every milestone, every smile, every tiny achievement. There were albums and albums of Madison. Of me, there were pictures. Sure, but they were different. Functional. First day of school. Graduation. Meanwhile, Madison had Madison trying ice cream, and Madison's adorable sneeze, and hundreds of candid shots where she just existed, beautiful and beloved. When Dad remarried 6 months after Mom's diagnosis, yes, you read that right, 6 months, his new wife Cheryl immediately clicked with Madison. They went shopping together, got mani-pedis together, posted Instagram selfies with captions about bonus daughters, and blessed to have gained a sister. I was never in those photos. I was busy at the hospital, blending kale smoothies Mom couldn't keep down, researching alternative treatments, fighting with insurance companies. The will reading happened 3 weeks after the funeral. I almost didn't go. Dad had made it clear that Mom didn't have much to leave anyway, and I figured whatever little there was should go to Madison. I was 28, working as a line cook at a downtown restaurant, and living in a studio apartment that cost too much for what it was. I didn't need money, I needed my mother back, and no will was going to give me that. But Dad's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, called me directly and said Mom had specifically requested I be there. So I went. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Madison showed up 20 minutes late, holding a Starbucks cup, wearing sunglasses indoors. Cheryl was with her, and they were laughing about something on Madison's phone as they walked in. Dad gave me a tight smile from across the conference table but didn't say anything. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat and began reading. Most of it was standard stuff. The house went to Dad, obviously. Some jewelry split between Madison and me, though I noticed Madison got the good pieces, the ones I remembered Mom wearing on special occasions. Then came the big one. To my daughter Madison, I leave the remainder of my personal trust fund, valued at approximately $100,000, to help her build the future I know she dreams of. Madison gasped, genuinely shocked. Cheryl squealed and grabbed her hand. Dad smiled, proud and teary-eyed. $100,000. That was more money than I'd made in 3 years of working at the restaurant. I waited. There had to be something for me, right? To my daughter Claire, Mr. Peterson continued, and I sat up straighter. I leave my recipe box, which contains everything she needs to know about what matters most. I trust she will understand its true value in time. The room went silent. Then Madison let out this little laugh, not mean exactly, but not kind either. It was the laugh you make when something is absurd, when you can't quite believe what you're hearing. A recipe box? Cheryl said, trying to sound diplomatic but failing. Well, that's sweet. Claire loves cooking, doesn't she? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Your mother always said you had her talent in the kitchen. Mom left me recipes, I said slowly, trying to process it. While Madison gets $100,000, I get index cards with recipes on them. It's what she wanted, Mr. Peterson said gently, and he looked at me with something that might have been pity. The box itself was brought out from a safe, a wooden box about the size of a shoebox, worn smooth from years of use. I recognized it immediately. It had lived on the counter next to the stove when I was growing up. Mom would flip through it when she was deciding what to make for dinner, her fingers sorting through the cards with a familiarity that came from decades of use. I took it in my hands. It was heavier than I remembered. The wood was warm, as if someone had been holding it just moments before. "There's actually quite a lot of recipes in there," Mr. Peterson said. "Your mother was quite the collector." Madison was already on her phone, probably calculating what she could buy with $100,000. Cheryl was planning a shopping trip to celebrate. I could hear her making suggestions about New York, about visiting that one boutique Madison loved. I carried that box out of the lawyer's office like it was made of lead. The May sunshine felt too bright, too cheerful for how I felt. My car, a 12-year-old Honda with a dent in the passenger door, sat in the parking lot next to Madison's brand-new Lexus, a graduation present from Dad and Cheryl that had cost more than my entire year's salary. I sat in my car for a long time, the recipe box on my lap, and I cried. Not the pretty kind of crying Madison did. The ugly kind, where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath and you sound like a wounded animal. Because it wasn't really about the money, you know? It was about what the money represented. It was about the fact that even in death, even after I'd given up 8 months of my life to care for her, Mom had chosen Madison. That night, alone in my studio apartment, I opened the box for the first time. The smell hit me immediately: cinnamon, vanilla, old paper, and something floral I couldn't quite place. Mom's smell. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was like she was there with me, leaning over my shoulder the way she used to when she taught me to make her famous apple pie. The box was crammed full of index cards, napkins with scribbled notes, pages torn from magazines, and bits of paper in all sizes. Mom's handwriting covered everything looping and elegant for the formal recipes, hasty and abbreviated for the quick notes. There must have been 500 recipes in there, maybe more. I pulled out a card at random. Aunt Betty's lemon bars. I remembered Aunt Betty, Mom's sister who died when I was 10. I remembered eating those lemon bars at her house, the way the powdered sugar would get all over my face. Another card. Claire's birthday cake, chocolate with raspberry filling. My favorite. Mom had made it every year until I turned 18 and moved out. I'd forgotten about that cake. The memory hit me so hard I had to set the box down and just breathe. I spent 3 hours that night going through recipes. Each one was a memory, a moment in time. Snow day soup, graduation party meatballs, post-breakup brownies, extra chocolate. Mom had documented our life in food, and she'd left it all to me. Maybe, I thought, maybe this was worth more than money after all. Maybe this was Mom's way of saying she saw me, she understood me, she knew I'd appreciate this more than Madison ever could. I felt a little better. Not good, not whole, but better. Then I went on Instagram and saw Madison's post from that afternoon. It was a photo of her holding a champagne flute, standing in what looked like a designer store, bags at her feet. The caption read, "Treating myself because I deserve it. Sometimes the universe rewards you for being patient. Number blessed number trust fund. Number living my best life. Number Mom would be proud. Mom would be proud." Of Madison spending her inheritance on a shopping spree while Mom was barely cold in the ground. I closed Instagram. I closed my eyes. I went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. Something was nagging at me, a feeling I couldn't quite name. At 2 a.m. I got up, turned on the light, and pulled the recipe box back out. I started going through it again, more carefully this time. That's when I started noticing things that didn't make sense. Little things. Weird things. Some of the recipes had prices listed at the bottom. Not ingredient prices, but big numbers. Eleanor's pot roast, $47,000. Margaret's wedding cake, $89,000. Why would Mom write those numbers there? Those weren't ingredient costs. Those weren't even catering prices for those dishes. Other recipes had addresses. Sarah's apple crisp, 1847 Meadowbrook Lane, Denver. Patricia's beef stew, 392 Riverside Drive, Portland. I didn't know anyone named Sarah or Patricia. What were these addresses? And some cards had what looked like account numbers. Long strings of digits that definitely weren't phone numbers. Grandma Rose's cinnamon rolls-less account. 井号84739R.负5583负94. I pulled out my laptop and started Googling. The first address I tried, 1847 Meadowbrook Lane in Denver, pulled up a property listing. It was a small commercial property, a building that housed a bakery. The property records showed it was owned by someone named Eleanor Thorne. Eleanor Thorne was my mother's maiden name, the name she'd had before she married Dad. My hands were shaking now. I tried the second address. 392 Riverside Drive in Portland. another commercial property, a small cafe, also owned by Eleanor Thorne. I spent the next 4 hours going through every recipe that had an address. By the time the sun came up, I'd found 7 properties, all commercial real estate, all owned by Eleanor Thorne, my mother. The account numbers were harder to track, but by 9 a.m., after calling my bank and pretending I was trying to locate some old accounts for estate purposes, I learned they were investment accounts, CD accounts, savings accounts, all in my mother's maiden name. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, surrounded by recipe cards, and I started to understand. Mom hadn't left me recipes. She'd left me a map. A treasure map written in the only language she knew I'd understand: food. Every recipe with a name was a clue. Eleanor, Sarah, Margaret, Patricia. These weren't real people. They were aliases Mom had used. And the dishes themselves? They were codes. High-value items meant high-value assets. Comfort foods meant safe investments. My mother, the woman everyone thought was just a housewife, just a mom who liked to bake, had been building a secret empire. Properties, investments, accounts that Dad didn't know about, accounts that weren't in the will because they weren't in her married name. And she'd left it all to me, hidden in plain sight. I did the math. With my limited internet research, I'd already found assets worth at least $2.3 million, and I'd only gone through half the box. Madison got $100,000. I got everything else. But here's the thing: I didn't understand why Mom had hidden it. Why the secrecy? Why the elaborate code? Why not just put it in the will clearly? That answer came 3 days later, when I was going through Mom's medical records. I'd kept copies of everything from her treatment, partly because I'm obsessive about documentation, partly because I couldn't bring myself to throw anything away. There, in a folder dated 9 months before her diagnosis, I found emails. Mom had printed them out and hidden them in her medical file. The emails were between Dad and Cheryl, dated 2 years before Mom got sick, 2 years before Dad claimed he'd met Cheryl at a grief support group. They weren't grief support emails, they were love letters. Affairs don't usually come with a paper trail, but Dad had been sloppy, and Mom had been thorough. The emails made it clear: Dad and Cheryl had been together for years. They were waiting for, and these were Dad's words, the right moment to go public. One email from Dad to Cheryl, dated 6 months before Mom's diagnosis, said, "Once Madison graduates, we can start fresh. She'll understand. As for Claire, she's independent enough. She'll be fine." But then Mom got sick, and their timeline changed. They had to accelerate. Dad filed for divorce right before Mom started chemo, claiming the stress of her illness was destroying their marriage. Mom, already sick and terrified, agreed to terms that gave Dad almost everything: the house, the cars, most of the liquid assets. She didn't have the energy to fight. But she'd been smart. Before she got too sick, before Dad could claim she wasn't mentally competent, she'd moved assets. Quietly, methodically, she'd transferred properties and money into her maiden name, setting up a structure that Dad couldn't touch. And she'd left it to me, the daughter who'd actually been there, who'd actually cared, hidden in a way only I would figure out. There was a note paper clipped to the emails. Mom's handwriting, shaky from the medication but still readable. "Claire, if you're reading this, you've figured it out. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I couldn't risk him finding out. He doesn't know about any of it. By the time he realizes, it will be too late. Use it well. Make me proud. And please, honey, don't let your sister destroy herself. She doesn't know what he's really like. Love, Mom." I sat on my bathroom floor and cried. But these weren't sad tears. These were angry tears. Furious tears. Because now I understood. Dad hadn't just cheated on Mom. He'd manipulated her while she was sick, taken her assets, and then convinced everyone, including Madison, that he was the long-suffering husband who'd stayed by her side. And Madison. Poor Madison had no idea she was being used. To Dad and Cheryl, she was the fun one, the pretty one, the one worth investing in. But I'd seen the emails. Once Madison's trust fund ran out, once she was no longer useful for their Instagram-perfect family image, they'd drop her too. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly gathering evidence and filing paperwork. I got a lawyer, a good one, expensive, but I could afford it now. I contacted each property management company, each bank, each investment firm. I proved I was Eleanor Thorne's daughter and legal heir. I took control of everything. The properties alone were worth $3.2 million. The investment accounts totaled another $1.8 million. There was also a life insurance policy I'd known nothing about, another $500,000. All of it was legally mine. All of it was already in my name, or could be with the documentation I now had. Mom had left Madison that $100,000 as a test, I think, or maybe as a mercy. Maybe she hoped Madison would be smart with it, that it would be enough to help her start a real life. But Mom had left me the means to actually build something lasting. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I had a plan. Madison was posting daily about her spending sprees. Designer bags, first-class tickets to Paris, a new car because the Lexus was last year's model. She'd burned through $30,000 in 3 weeks. Dad and Cheryl were encouraging her, appearing in photos, acting like proud parents watching their daughter live her best life. I waited until Madison's birthday. 3 months after Mom died, Dad threw her a huge party at his house, my childhood home, the one that used to be Mom's. They'd redecorated since the funeral. All of Mom's things were gone, replaced with Cheryl's modern minimalist aesthetic. There wasn't a single photo of Mom visible anywhere. I showed up to the party with a gift bag. Madison was surprised to see me. I'd been distant since the will reading, and she'd barely noticed. She hugged me, smelling like expensive perfume, and said, "I'm so glad you came. Did you bring your recipes? Cheryl wanted to try that apple pie you make." "I brought something better," I said. I waited until the cake was cut, until everyone had sung happy birthday, until Madison was surrounded by her pile of presents, more designer bags, jewelry, gift cards to expensive stores. "I have one more present for you," I announced to the room. "For you and Dad, actually." I pulled out a folder from my gift bag. Inside were copies of the emails between Dad and Cheryl, copies of the divorce papers where Dad had claimed Mom's illness as grounds, copies of Dad's financial records showing he'd been hiding assets even while Mom was in treatment. I'd had everything spiral-bound, like a presentation. The cover page read, "The Real Story of Eleanor Thorne." "What is this?" Dad said, his face already going red. "It's Mom's gift to me," I said calmly. "See, she didn't just leave me recipes. She left me the truth. And I think Madison deserves to know the truth too, don't you?" I handed the folder to Madison. "You should read that. All of it. The dates are particularly interesting. You'll notice Dad and Cheryl have been together since before you graduated high school, since before Mom got sick, since before Dad convinced everyone he was the devoted husband." Cheryl stood up. "This is inappropriate. It's Madison's birthday." "You're right," I said. "It is inappropriate. Just like it was inappropriate for you to be sleeping with my mother's husband while she was dying. Just like it's inappropriate that you threw out all of her belongings before she was even buried 3 months." The room had gone completely silent. Madison was flipping through the folder, her face getting paler with each page. "Claire," Dad said, his voice warning, "this isn't the time or place." "Really? Because I think this is the perfect time. Because Madison needs to know who she's trusting, who she's celebrating with, who encouraged her to blow through Mom's money on handbags while Mom's property taxes go unpaid. That was a lie. I'd paid them, but Dad didn't know that. And Madison," I turned to my sister, "you should also know that the trust fund, that was a test. Mom knew exactly what you'd do with it. She knew you'd burn through it without thinking, without investing, without planning for the future. Because that's what Dad and Cheryl taught you, that money is for spending, that you deserve nice things just for existing." Madison's eyes were filling with tears now. The ugly kind, the real kind. But the recipe box she left me? That wasn't about food. It was about everything she'd built. Every property, every investment, every safety net she created while Dad was sneaking around behind her back. "She left you $100,000, Madison. She left me $5.5 million. Dad stood up so fast his chair fell over. "That's impossible. There's no money. I handled all of Eleanor's finances." "You handled the finances she let you see," I said. "The ones in her married name. But Mom was smarter than you gave her credit for. She'd been moving assets for years, preparing for the day when she'd finally have the courage to leave you. Then she got sick, and you filed for divorce first, and she didn't have time to fight you. So she did the next best thing. She made sure you couldn't touch what really mattered." I pulled out my phone and showed Dad a photo. It was the deed to a building downtown. A prime location. Real estate worth almost $1 million by itself. "This was Grandma Rose's cinnamon roll recipe," I said. "Funny how recipes can contain so much more than just cooking instructions when you know how to read them." Dad was shaking now. "You're lying. You're making this up." "Am I? Want me to show you the property records? The investment statements? The accounts in Eleanor Thorne's name that you never knew existed?" I looked at Madison. She was crying openly now, black mascara running down her cheeks, the folder still clutched in her hands. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you," I said to her, softer now. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth. Mom loved you. She always loved you. But she loved me too, and she knew I'd actually use what she left me to build something real. She knew you'd need tough love, and this was her way of giving it to you." I picked up my purse. Oh, and one more thing. I'm opening a restaurant. Mom's recipes, the real ones, not the coded ones, are going to be the menu. It's going to be called Eleanor's, and it's opening in 6 months in the building downtown, the one Mom left me. I'd invite you all to the opening, but I think we both know you won't come. I walked out of that party with my head high. Behind me, I could hear Cheryl shrieking, Dad yelling, Madison sobbing. The other guests were murmuring, shocked, confused, delighted by the drama. I didn't look back. The next morning, I woke up to 47 text messages from Dad's lawyer threatening legal action. I forwarded them all to my lawyer, who sent back a very polite, very detailed response explaining that everything I'd claimed was documented and legal, and any attempt to contest it would only drag out the embarrassing details of Dad's affair and financial manipulation. We didn't hear from Dad's lawyer again. Madison called me 2 weeks later. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. I read everything, she said. Her voice was small, hollow, all of it. The emails, the dates, everything. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I've spent almost $60,000, she whispered, on stupid stuff, things I don't even need, things that don't matter. You have $40,000 left, I said. That's still something. You could invest it, save it, use it for school. I don't know how, she said, and she started crying again. That's when I understood what Mom's note had meant. Don't let your sister destroy herself. Come work for me, I said, at the restaurant. Not as a gift, as a real job. You'll work the host stand, you'll learn the business, you'll earn minimum wage plus tips like everyone else. But you'll learn. And maybe in a few years, when you've proven you can handle responsibility, we can talk about making you a manager, maybe even a partner. Really? She sounded so young, so hopeful. Really? But Madison, if you screw this up, if you're late, if you slack off, if you act entitled, you're done. I won't give you special treatment. I can't. I understand, she said. When do I start? Eleanor's opened 6 months later, exactly on schedule. Madison worked the host stand every night we were open. She showed up on time. She smiled at customers. She learned. She still had moments where the old Madison peeked through the one who thought she deserved special treatment, but she was trying. Really trying. Dad and Cheryl never came to the opening. They never called. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, their marriage was struggling. Turned out Cheryl's attraction to Dad had been primarily financial, and when she realized he wasn't as wealthy as she'd thought, the appeal faded fast. The restaurant was successful from day one. Mom's recipes were incredible, and the story, once it got out, and it did get out, made us famous. The daughter who inherited millions through secret recipes. The mother who outsmarted her cheating husband from beyond the grave. It was the kind of story food bloggers and journalists loved. I was interviewed by The Times, by Food Network, by magazines and podcasts and blogs. Everyone wanted to know about the recipe box, about Mom's clever coding, about how I'd figured it all out. What I never told them was the real gift Mom had left me. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the properties, it was the knowledge that she'd seen me, really seen me. All those years when I thought I was invisible, when I thought Madison was the only one who mattered, Mom had been watching. She'd seen my loyalty, my work ethic, my dedication. She'd seen me spending nights in her hospital room while Madison posted selfies. She'd seen me holding the basin while Dad was out with Cheryl. She'd seen everything, and she'd made sure I knew it. The recipe box sits on a shelf in my office at the restaurant. I've laminated all the cards, preserved them carefully. Some of them are on display in frames around the dining room, part of the restaurant's story. But my favorites, the ones that meant the most, those I keep private. There's one I look at whenever I'm having a hard day, whenever I doubt myself, whenever I wonder if I made the right choices. It's for Claire's chocolate chip cookies, the ones Mom and I used to make together when I was little. There's no code on this card, no hidden assets, just the recipe, written in Mom's careful handwriting, with a note at the bottom, made with love, always. Sometimes Madison comes into my office and sees me looking at that card. She doesn't say anything. She just puts her hand on my shoulder and squeezes. We're not close the way sisters in movies are close. We probably never will be. Too much has happened, too much damage was done. But we're learning. She's learning that love isn't measured in money or Instagram posts. I'm learning that people can change if they really want to. Last month, Madison came to me with a business proposal. She'd been taking night classes in business management, using some of her remaining trust fund money to pay for school. She wanted to open a second location of Eleanor's, and she wanted to manage it. She had a whole presentation prepared, complete with financial projections and marketing plans. I told her I'd think about it. I haven't decided yet. Some wounds take time to heal, and some lessons need to be learned slowly. But the fact that she asked, the fact that she'd worked for it, that she'd learned and grown and tried, that matters. Mom would be proud of that, of both of us. Tonight is the 2-year anniversary of Mom's death. The restaurant is closed for a private event, a dinner for Mom's old friends, her real friends, the ones who stood by her. We're serving all her favorite dishes. Margaret's pot roast, Sarah's apple crisp, Grandma Rose's cinnamon rolls. And at midnight, when everyone has gone home, Madison and I are going to sit in the empty restaurant, and we're going to open a bottle of wine Mom had been saving for a special occasion, and we're going to go through the recipe box together. There are still cards I haven't decoded, still mysteries to unravel. Because that's the thing about Mom's gift. It wasn't just the money, it was the journey. It was the treasure hunt she created, the mysteries she left behind, the way she turned her entire life into one last puzzle for me to solve. And I'm still solving it, one recipe at a time. Some people inherit money, some people inherit property. I inherited my mother's cleverness, her strength, her ability to play the long game. I inherited her recipes and her secrets and her way of turning something ordinary into something extraordinary. I inherited everything that mattered. And in the end, that recipe box that battered, cinnamon-scented, wooden box full of index cards and memories turned out to be worth more than any amount of money could ever be. It was worth everything.